The Mets have acquired Luis Robert Jr. They have their Gold Glove center fielder. You're watching Mets Daily. Make sure you click that thumbs up. Click it. Don't smash it. Someone on Twitter said you say smash that thumbs up too often. So good advice. He said it respectfully. He likes the show. So thank you to the guy on Twitter who said that. We will click that thumbs up button. Make sure you comment, subscribe, and follow me at Jake Brown Live. Luis Robert Jr. is a name we've talked about a lot, and I absolutely love this deal for the Mets. Listen, I'm not in love with Luis Robert Jr., the player. I get it. He's been on a decline the last 2 years. But the reality is the upside on him for what you gave up makes the trade a no-brainer. Essentially, it becomes a salary dump. I like Luis Angel Acuna. He was never making the Mets roster. They have too many infielders. If he's anything, he was going to be the last guy on the roster as a pinch runner. And do the Mets need to keep a roster spot for a pinch runner? Luis Robert Jr. could steal as many bases as Acuna. Luis Robert Jr. is a guy who steals 30 bases. So, this was essentially a salary dump of the $20 million that the Mets will pay. But it's a rental. The Mets have the money. Like, it's not an issue for the Mets if they're committing 1 year to a guy and then pay another $2 million to buy him out. Like, at the most, this is a $22 million commitment. And listen, if Luis Robert bounces back and he becomes the guy he was in 2023, that was an all-star and talked about by the entire league. Remember, he's just 28 years old right now. If he becomes that guy, it's a no-brainer for you to say, hey, we'll pay him another $20 million in 2027. If not, you move on. You have Carson Bench. This is like, I'm seeing people mad at this deal, and I'm like, would you rather Tyrone Taylor starting in center field or Luis Robert? At Luis Robert's floor, he's stealing you 30 bases, and he's playing Gold Glove defense in center field. At his floor. At his peak, this is a guy that can hit 30, drive in 90, steal 30 bases, and win a Gold Glove. I mean, I understand you're saying, he's fallen off, he's had some injury history, but if he comes anywhere in the middle of his bottom and his ceiling, this is a steal for the Mets. I mean, they gave Acuna and Truman Pauly, who I'm going to be honest, I had never heard of. And I don't want to hear people who follow the Mets and say they know a lot about Truman Pauly. Nobody knows who Truman Pauly is. I'm sorry to his family. We don't know who he is. And listen, Truman Pauly can end up being great. He was a 12th round pick for the Mets in the 2025 draft. I know nothing else about Truman Pauly. I'm going to be honest. I didn't care enough to look up any more details about him. Call me lazy. I didn't care. This was Robert Jr. and his $20 million for Acuna and a prospect that was not in the top 40 in Mets prospects. They did not give up Sproat. They didn't give up Wenninger, Watson. I mean, to me, I'm a little bit surprised this was all it took. And why I think, let me go through the reasons why I love this deal. First off, interesting stat from Sarah Langs on this that tell you a lot what the Mets like about this deal and run prevention and getting younger and getting faster, which the Mets are doing. Getting younger from the likes of 31-year-old Pete Alonso, 32-year-old Brandon Nimmo, to 28-year-old Bo Bichette, 28-year-old Luis Robert. The 90th percentile or better in both outs above average and bat speed in 2025. Julio Rodriguez, Wilson Contreras, Luis Robert Jr. He is a 7 OAA. He is a elite fielder. He also has a sprint speed. We talk about his bat speed of 90 on Baseball Savant. You want to talk about a guy that could steal a base or two? He's that guy. Luis Robert, in the second half of 2025, if we want to pick apart certain numbers, hit .298 with a .352 on base with 5 homers, 11 stolen bases, and a 15% strikeout number, an 808 OPS, 126 WRC plus. If you love those analytics, I don't. Those are your numbers for him in the second half, where he hit great. If you want to know another element of Luis Robert that makes him make sense, guys, Luis Robert has an 872 career OPS against left-hand pitching. That's the key here. Luis Robert Jr. might not be the everyday center fielder. Like, there could be a point the Mets put, if they keep Beatty, have Beatty in left against right-hand pitching and Carson Bench in center. Like, there is a chance that Luis Robert doesn't have to be this 160-game player for the Mets. He could be a 100-game player. Bench gets a sprinkle in center for 60 against righties, and Robert sits against righties. That could be a world in the second half of the season if it's not working out offensively with Robert. But Luis Robert at his top, guys, was A guy who hit 38 homers in a bum White Sox lineup in 2023 with 80 RBIs. He's coming off a year where he stole 33 bases. He only hit 14 homers, 53 RBIs, some injuries, but again, played Gold Glove defense. And listen, I think change of scenery is a legit thing. When you were on a White Sox team, folks, that is as bottom of the barrel it gets the last 2 years. They won 60 games in 2025 and competed with the 62 Mets for the worst team in sports with 41 wins in 2024 and 61 wins in 2023. 2023 was his great year, but after that, the team has just sunk into just awful. And mind you, when the White Sox won 93 games in 2021, Luis Robert was a part of that. Luis Robert in that 2021 season, while limited time because he was hurt, 68 games, he hit 338 with a 378 on base, 13 and 43 in those 68 games. So part of that only winning team he's been on, he was sensational in that limited time. So I think there is something to the, coming to a winning team, playing alongside Juan Soto next to you, and a young player potentially in Bench. Now Bench could have less pressure in the corner outfield. Your defense up the middle is sensational. And that's why I just laugh at people mad at this. I'm like, the Mets can eat the $20 million. If you'd rather have Brandon Nimmo than Luis Robert, you don't really understand the sport. Brandon Nimmo is on back of his career. He's going to break down. He already has. His body's broken down. He doesn't steal bases. He's a liability defensively. I know Luis Robert strikes out a lot and it's coming off bad seasons, but at his worst, he's a Gold Glover and he steals 30 bases. That's already more than what Brandon Nimmo is giving you. I know you're going to say, but no, he hit this many homers, this many RBIs. Luis Robert hitting behind the likes of some of the players that the Mets have now is going to be better. He is going to be better if he's on that field and stays healthy than he was in Chicago. It's just bound to happen. And his second half of the season and what he does against left-hand pitching, the deal was a no-brainer. And I love it. I think this is a home run for the Mets. I don't think this makes them, World Series champions. They still have to add starting pitching. We know that. We'll talk about that throughout the week. That is obviously a topic. But what they gave up tells you they still have everything at their disposal to give up in a trade. They still have Sproat, Tong, Jet Williams, Will Watson, Wenninger. They have all these prospects at their disposal, and they could get rid of some of them and still have more in order to get someone like a Freddie Peralta. Or, mind you, the Mets can still be in on Tariq Skubal because of this trade now that they didn't give up anything. So I love it. And I just think the people who say the Mets traded for, a floor player with a 228 batting average, to me, that's lazy. It's a lazy take. I saw someone like Dan Gross said that. It's just pure laziness by people saying that. You could not like the move, but to just say the Mets traded for a 220 hitter, that's called laziness by you. So I think this is a home run for the Mets. They won't get home runs from Cody Bellinger. I think with the addition of Luis Robert Jr., it feels like they're out on Bellinger because now their payroll's around 360, 370. Doesn't feel like they're going to give Bellinger, even if it's short-term, $40 million. That'll push them past $400. And the only salaries they can move is Peterson and Senga. There's not enough salary that can be shed in order for them for really go Bellinger. And then still get a starting pitcher as well. So I just don't see that happening. This was their Bellinger move for half the cost. You gave up almost nothing. You gave up Acuna. Listen, would I love to have Bellinger? Of course. But with the numbers he's asking for, it's astronomical. He's just not a $45, $50 million player. And the Mets paid that for a younger Bo Bichette. They gave the kind of overpay for Bichette. I don't think they want to do it to two different players now. It feels like Bellinger and the Yankees are back for reunion. But I'm perfectly fine with a flyer for 1 year on Robert. It doesn't work. Potential lockout next year. You figure out an outfielder next year. You go sign Randy Arozarena in free agency. That you can go do. So there's moves to be had. I was at Mamma Mia last night on Broadway. What a show. One of my favorites. If you don't know, I saw it as a kid, fell in love with the music before I even knew what ABBA was. I just knew about this Mamma Mia musical and the soundtrack. My mom would play in the car. So to see it 20 years later as an adult was awesome. It was like 8 rows away. It was fantastic last night. But as that was happening, Carlos Beltran, one of my all-time favorites, was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. Congrats to Carlos, man. And he'll probably go in a Mets uniform. He said the Mets hold a special place in his heart. Absolutely loved Carlos Beltran. 7 years with the Mets, 7 years with the Royals, more games with the Mets. He's going to have a Mets hat on in that Hall of Fame. 280, 369 OBP, 149 homers over 7 seasons, 559 RBIs, 100 stolen bases. So many cool moments. The walk-off against the Cardinals, that double out of here. A homer in Game 1 of the 2006 NLCS. The climbing of the hill in Houston was an awesome moment in that ballpark. 2 home runs in Game 4 of the NLCS in 2006. I mean, Beltran was just so fun to watch hit, so much fun to watch in the field. And, when they traded him, they got Zach Wheeler. It ended up being a good trade for the Mets, although they gave away Wheeler. But that was a tough moment for me when we lost Beltran. You knew it was going to happen, but you were just like, man, I'm going to miss him. As smooth and as cool as the other side of the pillow. And going in as a Met is awesome. I got to meet him in one of the suites last year, the year before. Just a really nice dude as well. Really, great dresser. He smelled incredible, whatever his cologne was. Carlos Beltran is a Hall of Fame baseball player and had a Hall of Fame cologne and fit on that night at the Subway Series, I think it was, in the suite. I mean, shout out to him for that as a guy who loves a good cologne and a good spray, smelling good. Shout out to Carlos Beltran for making the Hall of Fame. That's all for today, guys. We can't get to your comments today, but we'll get back to your comments tomorrow. Let me know in the comments what you think of Luis Robert Jr. We'll read your comments tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching Mets Daily. Click that thumbs up for me. Comment. Go follow. My X is popping off right now. If you're on Twitter, follow me at Jake Brown Live, Instagram, TikTok, and please go subscribe to my YouTube at Jake Brown Live right now. We'll talk to you tomorrow right here on Mets Daily. Let's go Mets.